The Supreme Court's latest ruling just upended the national gun rights landscape, and it's not business as usual. A landmark decision that could redefine your rights forever. Are you ready for the consequences? In a shocking move, the Supreme Court has issued an emergency order that drastically changes how Second Amendment laws can be enforced. This ruling isn't just another decision. It sets the stage for a future where states have far more power to protect gun rights from federal interference. Let's dive into what this means for every gun owner and why this is something you need to understand. Chapter 1. The 8-to-1 decision that surprised everyone. It all started with an 8-to-1 decision that took legal experts by surprise. Most anticipated a divided ruling, maybe a narrow 5-to-4 split, but instead, we saw a massive supermajority. Even more shocking, one of the most liberal justices, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who had previously expressed skepticism about expanding gun rights, sided with the majority. This was a monumental shift, and it's something that we need to understand deeply. Chapter 2. Why this case was different. Typically, Second Amendment rulings at the Supreme Court have been contentious, with conservative justices advocating for gun rights and liberal justices pushing back against them. However, this case broke the pattern. The outcome wasn't just unexpected, it was unexpected because of who voted in favor of it. Chief Justice John Roberts, who often looks for narrow technical grounds to avoid broad constitutional questions, completely embraced a much broader, anti-federal mandate principle. This ruling clearly sends a message. Federalism is essential, and state sovereignty is no longer something that can be casually dismissed or challenged. Chapter 3. What this ruling means. So, what exactly does this ruling mean for the future of gun rights? It's about something called the anti-commandeering principle, which asserts that the federal government cannot force states to enforce federal laws. This principle has now been explicitly applied to the Second Amendment, marking a major shift in how gun laws can be enforced across the nation. This is not just about guns, it's about state rights and the balance of power between the federal and state governments. For the first time, we're seeing the legal community embrace this principle within the realm of Second Amendment protections. Chapter 4. Justice Sotomayor's dissent. One of the most surprising elements of this ruling came from Justice Sotomayor's dissent. Now, you might think she dissented because of her general opposition to gun rights, but that's not the case. Sotomayor's dissent wasn't about guns at all. Instead, it was about state sovereignty. She dissented because she believed the court should have gone even further to protect state power. In other words, her objection wasn't about restricting gun rights, it was about ensuring that the federal government didn't overstep its bounds in forcing states to comply with federal mandates. Her dissent actually underscores the growing importance of state power, no matter which side of the political spectrum you're on. Chapter 5. The bigger message. This ruling is about more than just the Second Amendment. It sends a broader, more fundamental message to every state in the nation. Whether a state leans red or blue, it is no longer under the thumb of the federal government when it comes to enforcing laws, especially gun laws. This could be a major shift in how states exercise their sovereignty, and it has the potential to redefine the relationship between state and federal powers across multiple legal and political issues. Chapter 6. The growing number of SAPA states. Now, here's where things get particularly interesting. Right now, 27 states have passed or are considering Second Amendment Preservation Acts, SAPA. These laws are designed to protect state sovereignty when it comes to enforcing federal gun laws. Many of these states are already actively enforcing these laws, and the Supreme Court's recent decision is giving them a green light to continue doing so. Before this ruling, many of these laws were in legal limbo, either blocked or not enforced because of the threat of federal lawsuits. But now, states are ready to push back, and they have the backing of the court. Chapter 7. The impact of SAPA laws across the country. The number of states that have implemented or are working on SAPA laws is staggering. Together, these states represent nearly half of the U.S. population. Just imagine the federal government trying to enforce gun laws in these areas without the cooperation of state law enforcement. It's a tall order, to say the least. When you have this many states standing firm, each one with their own version of SAPA, it becomes a serious challenge for federal agencies like the ATF to try and enforce gun laws. Chapter 8. The challenge of enforcing federal gun laws. Without local police cooperation, enforcing federal gun laws becomes exponentially harder. Let's take a closer look. The ATF, the primary agency responsible for enforcing federal gun laws, has about 2,500 agents across the entire country. When local police departments stop assisting, the ATF's ability to investigate illegal firearms dealers and conduct search warrants drops significantly. Local police play a critical role in gathering information, conducting raids, and helping federal agents with on-the-ground enforcement. Without them, the federal government has to go it alone, which is a difficult and often impractical approach, especially with such a small number of field agents. Chapter 9. The ATF's funding crisis. The funding problem also cannot be ignored. The ATF's annual budget, around $1.7 billion, is heavily dependent on grants that are shared with state and local law enforcement. States with SAPA laws can no longer accept these federal funds if they are tied to enforcing federal gun laws. This loss of federal funding could result in a significant crisis for the ATF, which already operates with a relatively small number of field agents. Without the support of local agencies, the ATF's budget and its ability to enforce laws could be severely impacted. Chapter 10. The loss of access to state databases. But that's not all. SAPA laws have a direct impact on the ATF's ability to trace firearms. Many states, like Missouri, have their own criminal and firearm databases that the ATF has relied on for background checks and firearm tracing. But, as SAPA laws are enacted, the ATF loses access to these vital state databases, making it much more difficult for them to track firearms and investigate illegal gun sales. This loss of access to state-level data is one of the most significant challenges facing the ATF going forward. Chapter 11. The real impact of SAPA laws in Missouri. This isn't just a hypothetical issue. In Missouri, after SAPA was enacted, the ATF's ability to trace firearms connected to crimes dropped by 30%. If more states begin to implement SAPA laws, the ATF could lose the ability to trace up to 200,000 firearms a year. That's a massive blow to federal enforcement, and it's something that could have far-reaching implications for the entire country. Chapter 12. The effect on federal prosecutions. Now let's talk about the impact on federal prosecutions. Typically, federal firearm cases are initiated by local police officers, who then refer the cases to federal prosecutors. But if SAPA laws take full effect, this crucial cooperative relationship is cut off. Local law enforcement won't be able to assist federal agents, which means federal prosecutors could see a dramatic drop in the number of firearm-related prosecutions. This disruption could have a ripple effect across the entire criminal justice system. Chapter 13. The ATF's Pistol Brace Rule. The ATF's Pistol Brace Rule is another area where SAPA laws are making a significant impact. The rule, which would have required millions of braced pistols to be registered under the National Firearms Act, NFA, is now effectively unenforceable in SAPA states. Local law enforcement can't assist in enforcing the rule, and the ATF simply doesn't have the manpower to handle it on its own. This means that millions of gun owners in SAPA states may be able to ignore the rule without facing legal consequences. Chapter 14. A larger constitutional shift. But the bigger picture here is the constitutional shift that this ruling represents. It's not just about guns, it's about the balance of power between state and federal governments. This decision sets a precedent that could be used in other areas of law and policy well beyond the realm of firearms. The principles of state sovereignty and anti-commandeering could have wide-ranging consequences in many other areas of law, from immigration to healthcare. Chapter 15. Implications for both liberal and conservative states. This ruling isn't just a win for conservative states, it's something that could be used by liberal states as well. Liberal states might use the same framework to push back against federal immigration laws, while conservative states could apply it to avoid enforcing federal regulations on energy, education, or health care. This ruling could reverberate far beyond the gun debate, reshaping the legal landscape in multiple areas. Chapter 16. A monumental shift in federal law enforcement. What's clear now is that federal law enforcement agencies are facing a monumental shift in power. As states reclaim their sovereignty, federal agencies like the ATF, FBI, and DEA could see their influence drastically reduced. This case could mark the beginning of a new era of state independence, where states have more control over their own policies and are no longer beholden to federal mandates. Before we wrap up, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Firearm Legal Briefing. We'll keep you updated on how this case evolves. Drop a comment below. What do you think about SAPA laws, and should your state implement them?